Good afternoon, Flosstube. It's Caroline here in Leeds in West Yorkshire. I'm back for a catch-up with everything I've done since my last video, which was back in February. It's just been busy. Spring is always busy. We had my daughter's birthday in March. Work's been nuts, and Easter holidays just seemed to vanish. I had every intention of recording during them, but never quite managed it. Yeah, so I'm back with an update of everything I've done in March and April. So welcome to my video. It's Monday, May the 2nd. It's a bank holiday here in the UK for May Day. It was beautiful weather for part of the weekend, been a bit rubbish for the rest, but that's about par for a bank holiday here in the UK. I'd like to welcome you back if you're a returning viewer. If you're a new viewer, you're very welcome to be here. Please subscribe and like or comment on the video if you want. As I said, I'm in Leeds in the UK, so I shall get stuck in with everything I have been up to since we last spoke. I actually have another finished object. I finished in March. If you remember in my last video I said I was aiming to try and finish one thing a month. Try and get the pile down a little bit. So this is Springbird, to go with the Winterbird that I finished in, I can't remember if it was January or February. January, I think. I finished the stitching on this a couple of years ago, and it has been waiting to be finished. So finished the same as I finished Winterbird, into a little pillow. This is the back fabric. It's got ric-rac around the sides. It's stuffed with lizard litter, some crushed walnut shells. Very pleased with how this has come out, and it is currently sat in my spring tiered basket, which I've got a lot of my spring pieces in. So now I just need to finish the stitching on summer and autumn birds so I can get them finished as well and have a complete set. But very pleased to get that one out of the finishing pile. This next one was actually a finish. In that I finished the stitching in March, and so I finished it in April. This is Stitcher's Roll by Shepherd's Bush. I started it for Mania in 2019 and worked on it a little bit and worked on a little bit. I was about halfway through when I picked it up back in March and got all the stitching finished. And like I say, spent most of last month chipping away at the finishing, which took longer than it should, but I never seemed to get much time to sit down with it. So one day I'd get a few beads on, then get a few more beads on, and then do all the hem stitching. But very pleased to have this one finished and in my basket of needle rolls. I've done this is about my 5th Shepherd's Bush needle roll. I do like doing them. I probably need to see if I can find any more. They're a bit harder to find these days. So yeah, so that's Stitcher's Roll. So that's actually a finish and a finish this year instead of it going on the pile. I haven't gotten anything else finished since my last video apart from Stitcher's Roll, but I've worked on a few things. I've also been rejigging my rotation, but I'll talk about that more when I get to the end. the biggest change I've made is with the focus piece. So I am still working on stained glass sunflower. I have got another of the borders finished. I think last time I had some gaps where I'd run out of thread. Well, I got myself over to the Viking Loom just outside York in the Easter holidays and picked up the colours I was short of. So it was my first post-pandemic trip to a stitching store. Very nice. So yeah, so I've filled in all the gaps. So this border, small border here with the mainly black is done, and I've done this blocky one here, and I'm now onto this green, the second last one. I'm in the process of doing all the outlining in the white. So very pleased with my progress. Quite like it to move a bit faster, but it never does. It seems to take longer than I think it's going to do. But just slow and steady on this one. What I have decided to do with it, pardon me, is do the 25/7 method with it, which is work on it for 25 minutes every day, 7 days a week. I'm not sure who originally came up with that method. I picked it up from Michelle Bendy Stitchy from her videos, because she does that as well on her whips. So I'm not sure I'm necessarily getting any more stitching in on it. I'm just getting a chance to work on a few more other whips, which is something I'll come and talk about later. But yeah, plenty of progress on that one, so it's moving forward. Very much looking forward to getting that done. So that's been worked on steadily over the last couple of months. So apart from Stitcher's Roll, one of the other whip I worked on in March was September Morning by It's Finally Finished, which is a class piece of Jackie's, and I got to take the class with her back in Oxfordshire in 2016, I think. So that it makes this lovely little box and a set of smalls to go with it. I have one of the smalls, which is a tiny little pin cushion, finished, because this was a piece that she asked you get finished for the class so you could practice some of the methods. So I have that one done. But otherwise I am still working on all the box panels. This time round I got this end panel totally finished. So I finished the flower wreath at the bottom and some of the polka dots further up. It's all over one. So it's very, very dainty and absolutely lovely. And I made a start on outlining the next panel that I'll be stitching. Overall, I've got the side panels done. So you've 2 panels for the outside, 2 panels for the inside, for the long sides. And so this is one of the short sides. So I have another 3 panels, 2 with the flower wreath on and 2 that are just the polka dots. And then I get to stitch the smalls. It's being stitched in some beautifully delicate shades of silk. I don't know which silk it is, and I can't remember the fabric off the top of my head. I think it's just, so it's the kit materials that Jackie provided us with. So in March, the next whip I worked on was Folk Art Needlebox by Hillside Samplings. This was a market exclusive that came out in 2002. I have a few of these in my series in my stash to stitch. They came with these lovely painted boxes by Liberty Hill. There were 1,000 of them. I have number 862. So the front of the needle book is the design on the painted box. And I had some solid progress in the time I was stitching on it. I've got one house in, made a start on the barn. I basically just had the outline, so I've got all the grass in, and so got the buildings. So I'm quite pleased with my, you can see progress, which is not what I'm aiming for this year. This was another Mania start from 2019. So, like I say, very happy to have some progress. Again, this is being stitched with the kit materials and threads. So I think a lot of the thread is DMC. I'm not sure what the fabric is without looking. I had a comment on when I posted a picture of this piece to Facebook saying, oh, I miss Liberty Hill. Yeah, I also miss Hillside Samplings because they retired a few years ago as well. Then the class whip I worked on in April was Mistress L's sampler by Lauren Sauer of Forget-Me-Nots in Stitches. I took this class in 2013. Lauren's very helpfully written it on the front page. This is what the completed sampler will look like. This is the top, so that's one half. This is the second half. I am about there on it, so a fair bit to go on this one. So when I picked it up, I put in those bunnies, I put in the numbers, and I was completing the Montenegro and stitch around the numbers. And then there was a space at this side for some sort of random initials. So I've put our family in. So my husband, the two kids and myself. And then I got on with the next dividing row. Not a huge amount of progress, but hey, progress is still progress. I think I got too wrapped in whatever film we were watching. I think we were watching Blade, the original, which I'd never got round to watching. So I was a bit engrossed in it and not really stitching on the Saturday night. But nice to work on this one again. Nice to see a little bit of progress. Lauren uses quite a mix of overdyed cottons, and so there's a lot of sampler threads. Also uses silk, so they're Vera Soie in this as well. I haven't used, the letters are all in the silk so far. There'll be more when I get down to the ladies and I'm stitching the flowers and their dresses. So the next whip I worked on in April, because I had a slight change of tack with my rotation, which I'll talk about when we get to plans, was that what I decided to do was start working on other whips I'd started in April. and this leads into my mania plans, which I'll talk about in a bit. So I pulled out the 2 whips that I had left in my whip pile that had been started in April. And the earliest one was started April 2020, and that was Girls' Night Out by Kathy Barrick when she was designing as Carriage House Samplings. This is for the Remember the Ladies series that Kreinik did to promote their Silk Moire thread, Milk Paints thread. So it came as a kit with the silk. I'm stitching this on 36 count Dawn's Early Light from R&R. And this is my progress after a couple of days of working on it. When I picked it up, I was up here on the second of these motifs. So I have almost gotten down to the bottom. So this is the bottom of the piece. So it's quite a dinky little piece. It's worked over one in tent stitch, so it does require a fair bit of concentration. Yeah, so I can't, because it was a kit with the thread, I didn't want to do it any bigger or do it in full cross just in case I ran out of the thread. But yeah, so that's Remember the Ladies, and these are the thread colours. Very, very muted palette that really pop on that blue, dark blue linen and look lovely. So yeah, so Remember the Ladies. And then my other start that I'd had done in April 2021 was Blackbird Designs Clara Ellen. Now this is the only one of the Anniversaries of the Heart series I am stitching. I'm stitching this one, just this one, because Clara Ellen is my great grandmother's name. So I'm stitching this for her. And this is my progress to date. I got quite well. I just got a little bit of the border in and most of Clara. So I finished the border, finished her name and put that little doodad in. So I'm very, very pleased with my progress on this so far. This is on a piece of random unlabelled 28 count linen from my stash. And I'm using the called for colours. So the linen's sort of a pale taupe colour, which goes really well with the called for colours. So I worked on this through to yesterday evening. What I'm planning on doing is picking back up with the Blackbird Weekend Sal, which is sort of trundling along, I think, on Instagram, to try and get it finished this year, which would be nice, because when I actually spend any time actually working on it, as you can see, it grows quite quickly. I only spent about 3 hours and I've managed to get the border done. So yeah, so you expect to see a bit more of Clara Ellen over the next few months. But it'd be nice to get her done. So that's all the actual whips I worked on. Of course, I've got my new starts because, as you may have gathered if you've been watching videos this year, I'm doing 2 new starts. 2 new starts a month, just because I want to get some stuff out of my very large stash and actually work on some of it rather than it just sit there and look ornamental. So my first new start for March is I'm working on the Summer Schoolhouse series, Lessons in Abecedarian by Brenda Gervais of With Thy Needle and Thread. So I made a start on lesson number 1. I'm using all of the call for threads. I think this is for the full five charts, 5 pieces. I can't remember if it was 4 or 5. And I am doing it over 1 on the 28 count mushroom Lugana as called for. So that's my start on the house for the first lesson. Very much enjoyed doing that. I do quite enjoy some over 1 every so often. It's quite nice to work on 28 count actually. Yeah, so I'm just on filling in the house now, having got the hard stuff, which is all the counting, out of the way. So that'll probably not come out again till next year, but nice to, again, nice. Do like Brenda's stuff. I just don't have enough of it. I've only got one of her designs actually finished. So the next new start for March is a very, very old one. This is Sheepish Designs Remember Me sampler. The copyright date on the pattern is 1988. I've had this in my stash with the fabric to stitch it for best part of 20 years. I think I got it from Traditional Stitches when they were doing their stash enhancement program. I don't know if they still do. When I was in that in the very early 2000s. I'm using all the call for DMC. I don't have them on a ring or anything because there's only 5 colours, so there's a couple of greens, a couple of taupes, sorry, 6 colours, a yellow and a blue. They're all lovely muted colours, and when I pulled them, because I was thinking of converting it to overdyes, I just really liked the way the muted colours looked. So this is my start on it. And what I'm actually thinking is when I get this stitched, I might actually just finish it as a drum. I think it would make quite a nice drum, being long and thin. So there we go. So that's about the halfway point, so I have a bit more to go up the top. More alphabets. And a bit to go. Full width of the fabric. I can't remember what the fabric is. Probably 32 maybe. Let's say it came with the chart from Traditional Stitches, and I'm stitching it in DMC. So into April. My first new start in April was, again, another one that's been in my stash an awfully long time. This is Toccata number 1 from the Drawn Thread. I've stitched Toccata number 2, really enjoyed stitching Toccata number 2. That's framed and on the wall. But I never got back to start Toccata number 1. Again, another really old one. It's from 2003. I got gifted with the kit. So I mean, it's using 32 count antique ivory linen with the called for needlepoint ink silks. There's a Karen collection, there's some water lilies and wildflowers and Gloriana and a few other silk different threads. So that was my start in the top corner. Quite enjoying this one because it's like discrete little chunks you can get done at any given time. Always enjoy stitching a drawn thread. So I might need to, but I think I've worked out a way to get that, again, get them into my regular rotation as well. So these are all the threads. I tend to keep my silks in floss away bags, unless they're on the tag, like the, that's the Gloriana. Wood Pond. Again, it's a beautiful pale pale blues, greens and greys. It's lovely. And then my last new start, which was the second one for April, is Quaker Hornbooks by Ellen Chester of With Thy Needle, My Needle. This was a project she offered exclusively for guilds. So it came with the hornbook. I got mine through the Sampler Guild in the UK. They did a bulk order for us all. Incidentally, if you're interested, the Sampler Guild, closed for a while, but Lynn and Mike have now restarted it, so I've signed back up for 2 years. I'm looking forward to see if I can get more involved again this time. So that's the hornbook. I am doing, being a glutton for punishment, the over 1 version on 32 count. And this was my start so far. This is just a random scrap of 32 count linen, so I got from my stash, because it was just the right size really for the design on the hornbook. So yeah, and I'm stitching it, using Gloriana Pacific Blue silk, which is a lovely colour. And so yeah, so hopefully when that comes out, again, that one shouldn't take too much stitching. So my plans for May, right, Mania. Previous years I've done a number of new starts, but I decided not to do that this year. I've got my sorry, I had to pause the video because I was going to sneeze. So yeah, Mania plans. I'm going to stick with my 2 new starts for May and keep working on stained glass sunflower for the 25 minutes a day. And then what I'm planning on doing, because I was getting a little frustrated with my rotation because I wasn't getting through seeing enough of my whips. I wanted to try and touch as many whips as I could this year, so at least they have a little bit more progress rather than just sitting there marinating. So what I've decided to do is work, as I did at the end of April when I pulled out Girls' Night Out in Clara Ellen, on the whips I started in that month on previous years. So I'm going to go back to all the Mania starts that I haven't yet worked on this year, so which is about 10 or 11, because I've worked on most of my Mania starts for 2019 bar 1, which will be the first one I pick up, and then I have, I think, 3 left for 2020, 3 or 4 left for 2020, and 5 left for 2021, and I'm going to scatter them through the month. I worked on Clara Ellen till last night, so that was the 1st of May, my whip for the 1st of May, because I would like to get back to the Blackbird Design Sal. When I started to Carter number 1, someone told me about a Instagram sale on the 2nd weekend of every month for drawn thread designs. Now I have a couple of drawn thread designs in my whip pile because I've got an open heart as well. So I'm going to work on that on the second weekend of the month, and then I want to work on 1 class piece a month because I've got 12, 13 class pieces, and I'd like to touch each one of them. I mean, they're not getting a lot of progress, as you can see, but at least touch each one and get them a bit further on. And then, so I reckon 1 or 2 of my previous mania starts every month, and I'm going to either start a new piece over the weekends or work on a Sal or my class whip at the weekends. So we shall see how that goes and see how much I manage to get done. So yeah, so mania this year, it's a whip mania. I'm going to be working on all the whips I started in previous years. So the first one to come up will be the From the Heart basket, which I started, which is the last of the 2019 ones that I haven't already touched this year. So that's my plans. I hope that made sense. There's a little bit of stash. As I mentioned when I was talking about stained glass sunflower, I actually went to a stitching. I went to a shop, went to a local needlework shop. She doesn't sell much cross-stitch stuff these days, doesn't the Viking Loom. She's got a DMC. She's mostly about quilting. She's mostly about needlepoint. And I went because she stocks the full line of Appleton's threads, so I could get the ones I could match the ones I was missing for stained glass sunflower. The one designer she does stock is Just Nan. Quite a lot of my Just Nan charts have come over the years from the Viking Loom. So I had a browse through and picked up the 2021 Christmas ornament. I have one of her other Christmas ornaments in this line, but I knew I definitely didn't have this one. I think it's the 2019. It's the Dragonfly one I've got. So I've got the B one as well. So couldn't not when I was actually in a shop. I'm trying to be restrained this month because the spring bank half term at the end of May, we're going to the Lake District. I have booked a trip to Fobbles. So there will be a lot of stash next time because I just give Mo my credit card and say, I'm already emailing saying, can you put that to one side and can you put that to one side? So at this rate, I'll have shopped before I even get there. Another thing I picked up in the last couple of months was Emmy Metcalf from Hands Across the Sea, another one of the little gems that I like. I've got quite a list of Hands Across the Sea charts because Nicola just releases them faster than I can purchase them, so I'll just go back and get them when I can. So yeah, so that's again another one on the pile. And then from Patchwork Rabbit, I was buying some threads. I was looking for some threads, and I think Andrea on Instagram had just finished Come Into My Garden, so that one leapt out because, as you know, we have to buy all the Blackbird. So while I was waiting for the market releases to head over to the UK, I picked up one of the ones I didn't have from last year, so Come Into My Garden. I also picked up Caroline Broomhead 1838 by Plum Street Samplers, which is a sampler I've had on my wish list for an awfully long time and just never quite gotten around to getting, so decided it was time to pick that one up. And lastly, again, I was ordering some threads and from Peakside Needleworks, and they had Keeper of the Pins in stock, so I fell on that one because it's almost, you have to buy all the Brenda as well, as Brenda and Laura said in their last video. It's not just buy all the Blackbird, it's buy all the With Thy Needle and Thread as well. Having seen Carol's finishes in her last video, Carol Solbach Stitcher, yeah, I'd love to get to those sometime soon, but we'll see how we do, maybe next year. I'm put a note inside because Carol was talking about how she'd use little applique pins as their pin cushions rather than beads. So I think I might do the same thing when I finally get around to it. So yeah, so that was the last bit of stash because, like I say, I'm trying to save and be able to just have a splurge when I get to Flobbles. Right, I'm just gonna pause here and get all my knitting stuff together, and then I'll be back and we'll talk about knitting. Right, I'm back. Got all my knitting stuff together. There's no quilting in this video because I just haven't quite managed to find some time to do some. I'm hoping I'll get to do some this month, but we'll see how we go. I have a couple of knitting finishes. You might remember I finished the Ivy Over the Door shawl by Curious Handmade last time I recorded, but I hadn't actually gotten around to doing the blocking. I have now blocked it because I had to wait till Easter weekend to do it because I block shawls in up here in the study and usually there's one or other of us working up here. A lot of my husband works up here 3 days a week, so I couldn't have the guest bed out for blocking on, and it was a big one to block. So here we are. It's a beautiful long shawl. Still need to get it photographed, but I haven't. This is knit in Islington fingering weight from the Kettle Yarn Company. It's Kelp is the dark green, Julep was a slightly creamier colour, but unfortunately the dark green ran when I washed it before I blocked it. But actually, I don't think it just made it slightly paler green. I don't think it has actually hurt it any. So memo to self next time if I'm knitting in Kelp, wash the yarn before I knit and rinse all the excess dye off. But yeah, very pleased to have that done and off the whip pile. And I also finished my Cliff Walk socks, also by Helen Stewart of Curious Handmade. And here are the finished socks. These are knit in some Knitting Goddess yarn. It came in a club in 2016 called Back to the Discworld, and the colourway is the God of Evolution. It's her old 4-ply British woolen nylon base. So I finished these and my daughter promptly nicked them because she said she'd grown out of all of her knitted socks and needed another pair. So there you go. So they've gone to her. Which left me with nothing on the needles. So I've had a bit of a cast on. So I can't not have a Helen Stewart pattern on the needles, but what I decided to do was cast on a habitation throw because I have a huge basket that's all full of balls of yarn that have been left over from knitting shawls. You know, the odds and sods of shawls. I have a fairly particular colour palette, so they all sort of work together. So I'm going to so I'm doing a habitation shawl. So I've got my first 2 colours done. Starting with a black, which I think was Ripple Yarns, and then I think the grey may be a River Knits. As I said, they're all. I think there's some mini skeins that I bought at some point from Eden Cottage Yarns, but mostly it's yarn that's left over where I've got 30-40 grams worth of yarn left and a ball from knitting a shawl. So I'm going to turn some of them into a habitation short throw. So that's probably a fairly long-term project. So yeah, so that's the first month's progress on that. And then the next thing I'm knitting is the Twig and Bud shawl by Anne Cattin-Begg, Marna Gilligan. I think I mentioned in my last video, I bought the kit to knit it and showed you the yarn. So I'm over the 2/3 mark on the twig bit of the Twig and Bud shawl. So this is being knit in silk yarn, and then there is a mohair for doing the lace weight. They're both also from Marna and Cattin-Dub. She calls her yarn range, and it's Cattin Silk and Cattin Fluff. And the colourway is Through the Fog, which is this lovely muted blue. It's knitting up lovely. The kit also came with a couple of stitch markers as well to coordinate with it. So again, really enjoying knitting on that one, and the silk is absolutely gorgeous to knit with. Slippy but it's beautifully soft and gorgeous. It is, let me have a look, 100% mulberry silk. So lovely. And speaking of Marna's patterns, I had to succumb to the kit for the next one, which is called the summer shawl, which is called Hive. Twig and Bud is the spring. I haven't downloaded the pattern for Hive yet, but so again, it's mulberry silk and mohair, and the colourway I've got for Hive is called Take Me for a Walk in the Morning Dew. And the kit came with these beautiful bee stitch markers as well. So yes. So when I finish Twig and Bud, we'll see, I might start that one, or I might not. I might do something else. So that's everything I've got for you today. It's a bit of a whistle-stop tour, but it's trying to get time to record in around everything else. So thank you very much for coming back and watching with me. The show notes will be on my blog, which is carolinescorner.blogspot.com. I hope you all have have a good May. It's starting to warm up here in the UK, so hopefully we'll be getting into some summer weather soon. And thank you very much for watching, and take care, and I'll see you again hopefully at the end of May, and we can catch up with everyone's mania plans. Bye bye.